For this video on figured bass realization, please turn to page 132 in your textbook, part E. And what I'm going to do is go over the two bass lines that you're going to find in part E on page 132 of your textbook. So this one and this one. So let's begin with the first one. Now the first step is to figure out what key you're in. And of course the key signature is the first place to look. So here you have 3 sharps in your key signature. And so you know it's either going to be the key of A major or F sharp minor. Look at the last note. The last note is an A. So more than likely we're going to be in A major here. You can also see that it begins with a tonic chord. All right, well, when realizing the figured bass, remember that you want to write your Roman numerals on a line below the given figures. So don't use these figures with your Roman numerals. You want to write your Roman numerals below the given figures. So I'm going to start down here, and in the key of A major, I'm going to write my Roman numerals on this line. All right, so for a bass note that has no number underneath it, that's assumed to be root position triad. So this is going to be A, C sharp, E, which of course is 1. So again, no number underneath, no symbols, root position triad. By the way, if it's a 7th chord in root position, they will write a 7 underneath it. So no number means root position triad. A 6 represents first inversion. So you know here the 3rd is in the bass. Now look at it this way. If this is the 3rd, the G sharp, then what's the root? Well, the root is E, right? So what's going to happen here is that you would play an E major chord, E, G sharp, B, over the G sharp in the bass. You can't change the bass line. So 6 again represents first inversion triad, 3rd in the bass. If G sharp is the 3rd, E is the root. So that's going to be a 5 chord, E, G sharp, B in the key of A, in first inversion. Don't forget to use the inversion symbol on your Roman numeral as applicable. And you can see here, we're back to the same chord that we started with. Okay, again, first inversion for triads is 6 here. So if D is the bass, we know it's the 3rd of the chord. And if D is the 3rd, the root is B. So this chord is going to be B, D, F sharp. That's number 2 in first inversion. Now, when you're realizing the figured bass, you just use the notes from the key signature, right? So you know this is going to be B, D, F sharp because there's an F sharp in the key signature. And you know this is a G sharp because there's a G sharp in the key signature. And you know that this will be a C sharp, E because there's a C sharp in the key signature. Okay, no number underneath this bass note. That means it's in root position. So E, G sharp, B, root position on 5. Root position here. So the chord is F sharp, A, C sharp, which of course is number 6. We've already had this chord, the same as this one. But again, if this is the 3rd, if D is the 3rd, then B is the root. So the chord is B, D, F sharp. And again, don't forget to include the inversion symbol in your Roman numeral. If B is the 3rd, so again, this means first inversion triad. If B is the 3rd of the chord, the root's going to be G sharp. So the chord here is G sharp, B, D, with the B in the bass. And of course, that's going to be number 7. G sharp, B, D is diminished in first inversion. And then last one here, A, C sharp, E is 1. Good thing to do also is just double check to make sure your chord progression that you wrote is on the flow chart. It most often will be, not 100% of the time, but You can see here 1 5 1, 2 5 6, 2 7 1 all exists on the flowchart of chords for major keys. All right, and here's the second bass line. Notice this one has a key signature of 2 flats, so it's either going to be in the key of B flat major or G minor. Now, of course, this F sharp here is a big clue as to what key you might be in. F sharp is the leading tone in G minor. And then you also see these sharps here and a slash through the 6. Now, a lot of times in minor keys, the figured bass will include these kinds of symbols. Now, look at the first note, it's a G, and the last note is a D, and there's a sharp there, so this is actually going to be D, F sharp, A. And you can see that it begins on the tonic chord in G minor and ends on the dominant chord in G minor. So we're definitely dealing with G minor for this one. All right, let's realize the figured bass by writing a Roman numeral analysis below the given figures. So again, make sure you write your Roman numerals on a line below the figures given. First chord here, root position because there's no number underneath it, so we can assume this is going to be G, B flat, D, which of course is minor 1. Make sure your Roman numerals are reflective of the idea that you're in a minor key here. 1, of course, is minor. Okay, F sharp is in the bass, and we have a 6 as the figured bass symbol. 6 indicates first inversion triad. So you know this is the third of the chord. And if F sharp is the third, the root would be D. So here we're going to have D, F sharp, A, which is 5 in first inversion. Now remember, the leading tone is marked in for the 5 and the 7 diminished chord in minor keys, right? Back to 1, the same chord that you started with. Okay, 6 means first inversion, so this is the third in the bass again. If the third is E flat, the root is C, so the chord here is going to be C, E flat, G, which is 4 in first inversion, right? In G minor, C minor is 4. C in the bass, 6 underneath it. So this is the third of the chord. This is going to be in first inversion again. If C is the third, the root is A. So A, C, and E flat. That's 2. Don't forget it's diminished, right? A, C, E flat, and first inversion. Now, in figured bass symbols, whenever you have an accidental with no number next to it, such as this one or here, you could also see a natural or a flat with no number next to it as well. But whenever you see, I call it a floating accidental, whenever you see an accidental with no number next to it, it applies to the third above the bass. So a third above D is F, right? So this is going to be D, F sharp, and A. Then you realize that it's just an indication to raise the leading tone in minor in this case. All right, next chord has a B flat in the bass and a 6 underneath it. So this is the first inversion, and this is going to be the third of the chord. And if B flat's the third, the root is G. So this chord is G, B flat, D with the B flat in the bass. Six with a slash. That one looks pretty fancy, but it doesn't really, it's not really too confusing to understand what it means. First of all, the 6 does indicate first inversion. So if A is the third, the root would be F, right? But it also says to raise the 6th above the bass. So what's the 6th above A? A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So F is a 6th above A. You're going to take and raise that in relationship to what it would be in the key signature. So the F becomes an F sharp. And then you realize, again, oh, that's going to be the leading tone. The chord here is F sharp AC, which is, as expected, is the 7 diminished chord, the leading tone chord, in first inversion. Let me go over that one again with you. So the 6 indicates first inversion. So A is the third. If A is the third, F is the root. So without the slash, you'd have FAC. But the slash through the sixth indicates to raise by a half step the sixth note above that bass. Figured bass symbols always have meaning in relationship to the bass note. So if A is the bass, you count up a sixth, A, B, C, D, E, F, and you raise the F to an F sharp. So the chord that would be played with an A in the bass is F sharp, A, and C. All right, and then to finish up, G with no number underneath it means root position. And then again, we have an accidental with no number next to it, so that applies to the third above the bass. It's going to be the same as this chord. So D, F sharp, A. And again, check your chord progression. 1, 5, 1, 4, 2, 5, 1, 7, 1, 5. Ends on a half cadence here, but all the chords are on the flowchart for minor keys.